Hello again, everybody. So in the last video I went through these thumbnail sketches, this general value study, a little bit more practice on what I might make the stable look like in my nativity scene. But we're done with that for right now. Tonight, I found some black watercolor paper that I had sitting around from the last time I did watercolor painting in art school. And I've had a thought. I don't think this thought is going to work out, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try it here. So this could be probably a big, epic fail video. The thought is, if I do a grayscale underpainting in watercolor, and then let that dry, and then paint colors over the top of it, how bad will that grayscale bleed into my colors? I don't expect it to work out very well, but I'm going to try it, and we're going to see for sure, so that if it is actually a good idea, then I know. But again, I think this is probably a very bad idea. So, I'm just using my Crayola watercolors. Get those in frame here. These are the simple little Crayola cake watercolors. If you can see this weird texture that they're having right now, that is because I like to soak them and I leave them wet while I'm working. For right now, only my black is wet. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with some water. Actually, that's dirty water, so let me get some clean water instead. Now, just as a test, I'm going to do a circle. Okay, that's just water in that circle. I'm going to add some paint. I'm going to dip a little bit of water here. Oh yeah, that's a lot of paint. I just got these brushes and they hold way more paint and water than the other brushes I have been using. Let me do another circle over here. That's a little bit more reasonable, even though I didn't lay down a wash first. Let me try a little thirsty brush technique there. Let's try again over here. Do a half circle with the direct paint. Okay. I'll try another one over here. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of squeegee the water out of this brush. And let's see if I can get some more of this paint out of here. Spread it around a little bit more. Place a little bit back here. Okay. Alright. So these guys are very saturated. I'm just going to take a very light dip. Let's see, this should probably spread quite a bit. I am surprised at how little that actually spread immediately. But that's fine. That's going to be the dark side of my circle anyway. I will have to practice the, what do you call it? Like the amount of water and paint that I actually want to pick up at one time. So I've been using some really cheap synthetic brushes that are like plastic, and they did not work out very well for me. And these are synthetic hair brushes, and I really like the feel of it. I really like that it actually holds the water and the paint. And I think I'm going to do better with it once I've kind of got it figured out, which that's kind of what this practice is about. Just doing a little bit of practice with the paint and the water and getting used to it. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and clean this guy up a little bit. And let's see. Yeah, so I've got no paint on my brush now. That's fine. Keep them wet. Get just a dab of paint here. Okay. Yeah, that circle's not a very good circle. Alright, let's try going all the way around with this one. So in case I haven't mentioned it fully yet, I am learning watercolor. I am not like a watercolor master. I have done very little with watercolor, got very little practice with it, and I am watching tutorial videos by people like, let's see who is actually doing it. On YouTube, the Witty Gritty Paper Company. Let's see, who else am I watching recently? I'm not sure exactly. I've been watching a lot of people. I remember seeing stuff by IS Fine Art, but I don't know if it was actually a tutorial or just a time lapse of the painting. But I believe that mainly I've been watching the Witty Gritty Paper Company because she's actually going through like why some of this stuff that even happened in this little test has happened. Like, for instance, I have this good hard line right here, and right here, and right here. That's because I painted with too little water, and that paint dried, and then I laid this in, and that's really not able to deal with that. Then this would probably have been a bubble right here. I forget what they call those, blooms, I think. So a little bit of blooming, maybe. That might have just been a mess right there. But anyway, and then these bottom parts right here, these two with the puddles, they will probably bloom as well. So I'm learning a little bit about what happens with the water and the paint. But mainly with what I'm doing right now. So all four of these circles, I'm just going to use them. I'm going to let them dry now, and then I'll come back to the video, and I'm going to put color over them and see if I can gradate color over the top of that and maybe desaturate it as well. This is my theory, is that I know the paint's not just going to sit there and behave itself. So I'm hoping that what does come up desaturates my color and darkens it so that I can create like a gradient sphere without having to mix several different colors to do it. Because when I do my nativity painting, if I can do this and actually have a good result, that will save me a lot of time, because I know grayscale pretty well. If it doesn't work out, then I'm out like one piece of paper and a little bit of my cheap Crayola paint, which, you know, nobody cares. It's like $1 for that tray. So I'm going to pause now. We're going to let this dry, and when I come back, we will see how bad this does. Okay, I'm back. I let these dry a little bit. I don't think, they're not completely dry yet, but I also went ahead and used a marker and just kind of drew a bunch of stuff on here. I figure, let's go ahead and do a lot of practice, and do a lot of things. I didn't really show you these, earlier, so this is the number 12 Master's Touch round brush. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. I know all Master's Touch stuff was 50% off while I was in there. So I've got Master's Touch paper and brushes. This is a number 6 round. Let me see if I can get it to focus here. It does not seem to like that at all. About there. No? Okay, well anyway, that is number 6, and that is the brush tip on the number 6 compared to the number 12. And finally, let me turn this around. This is the number 2 round brush. Oh, there, it's very tight. Okay, anyway, this is the number 2 round brush, which is also very small. So I'm using these 3 round brushes now as my main set, but I was using a set, I believe I picked it up at Walmart. I'll just pull all these real quick. These brushes I picked up, I think, at Walmart for probably like maybe $6.99, and they're okay. They're Royal and Lang nickel, but they are kind of like a nylon or acrylic synthetic, and like this big flat brush is great. It seems really nice, but I had problems using this little round brush, their number 2 round, because these bristles, they click like plastic on the paper when I'm painting with it, and they do not hold a great deal of water. But you can see I've used that one. It's kind of dark colored now, and I've also used this little flat brush. Not bad for the price at all, but they're not great for watercolor because they don't hold very much water or pigment when you're using them. So I think I was doing a lot of dry brushing or overcompensating with the water in my dogfight painting that I did not long ago. So I'm going to stick with my number 12, just the big brush for right now. Back to this brush here. And so the first thing I'm going to do some 4 single color gradient washes. So I'm going to lay in clean water. And I'm just going to create a wash, starting at the top and working my way down, which I probably should have started at the bottom and worked my way up. But then I'm going to take my paint. In fact, I might just go ahead and start like right here in the middle. Let's try that and see how this works out. So the paint's going to go in both directions. And I'm going to go ahead and spread it nice and even. Okay, so I got very little paint in there. And let's go ahead and just get some more pigment. Let's start like right here. So I just want to create a little dark to light, or light to dark gradient in this box. That's working out pretty decent. And again, I am just using cheap Crayola palette thing of what they call watercolor cakes. They're anywhere from like $1 to $2, I think. For this is 16 colors. Okay, well, definitely got a cloud of black at the bottom there, so that would do. And I'm going to wash my brush off because I'm not going to be using black in anything else for a little while. Squeegee it out in the first cup, rinse it off some more in the second cup. Alright, and I'm just going to kind of go ahead and suck up some of this if I can. That did not quite work out the way I wanted it to. Let's try this instead. Okay. Just using an eyedropper to suck up some of that excess paint at the bottom so it doesn't pool up too badly. And let me suck up some water in there and spit it back out to help clean that tip out. That's better. So I'm just using it's a medical eyedropper that I happen to have laying around. I'm finding it very useful. I use it for wetting my little cakes over here. I do have a set of liquid watercolors that I have not opened up yet. And my cousin Mary, she has picked up a set of liquid watercolors, I believe, that I have to go pick up from her. That was really cool of her to buy me some watercolors. And I'll be glad to use those as well. Just, while I don't know what I'm doing, I figure let's use the cheap stuff. Because if I can get the basics down, then I won't feel too bad or be too afraid of like messing up with the good stuff. Alright, so yeah, that's working out as a gradient right there. I already wet down some colors in my palette earlier while in between the videos. I just took that eyedropper and laid in a bunch of water in each of the cakes. So here comes some red. I'm going to go ahead and load up on red this time. Let's see what we can do here. Oh wow, look at that red spread throughout everywhere that I laid out water. Okay. So I'm definitely not going to have to come back for more paint on that one. Okay, so let me try just kind of working this down. Okay, and tonight is the first night that I've actually used these new brushes. I don't know if I mentioned that before. I am really liking the feel of this right now. It is way nicer than those really cheap ones that I got at Walmart. And I think, I don't remember the exact prices of these brushes, but I'm kind of on a budget, so they were not highly expensive, especially with the 50% off. So I'm definitely right now recommending these Master's Touch products. And I'm not being paid to say that. Just to make that clear, nobody's paying me right now. But if they'd like to, I'm open to it. Because, let's be honest, everybody wants money, right? Alright, let me clean that out. And so I just made a little bit of a mess there. So I think I will go back and get a little bit more red. And we'll just kind of spread a little bit more red down here at the bottom. If you can do a gradient in one stroke, awesome. And if you can't, well, then I guess you're like me. Okay, I feel like that should be good enough. Alright. Had a little bit of concern that maybe the marker would bleed, but those are Faber-Castell Pet Artist pens. They're for inking comics, and I know that or actually, I'm going to say I'm pretty sure they bleed a little bit when you go over them with Copic markers, the alcohol-based markers. Oops, I just messed up. I forgot to lay in my wash first. I was just going to go straight in with my yellow on the next one. But anyway, the marker here does not seem to be bleeding with the watercolor, which is very good. I know issues I know about with the artist pens from using them is that they kind of have a tendency to lighten up or lift if I erase the underdrawing, if I drew something in pencil and then inked over it. So when I'm erasing, they'll kind of come up or lighten up, and then, like I said, with the what do you call it, the alcohol-based markers, they will kind of bleed a little bit. But even when I did see the bleeding, it was not that bad. And let's see, so I just laid a whole lot of yellow in there. It's not much of a gradient at this time. So let me come in here and see if I can just maybe lift some of that out. Or even push it further down. I'm going to end up oversaturating this one. Need to make sure I spread this. And so I'm not really worrying about being overly clean right now. I mean, if I was really concerned about staying within the lines, I'd probably use a smaller brush. Okay, let me add a little bit more yellow to this. Okay, I think that's gonna do. So we got, all right, red and yellow, and then I'm gonna go with a very light blue. So I've laid in my wash, get some blue. Okay, I think I picked up a bit much again, but to compensate for that, let's try cleaning out the brush. And then just kind of coming in, maybe spread it a little bit more. There we go. This will probably be the best gradient out of the group. But at least, I mean, they all have some gradient property to them. They're going from light to dark. Okay, and then in these 4 boxes, I'm going to do a gradient from 2 different colors. So we're going to see how that works out, and whether I can do that a little bit more tidy than the other ones. And while we're doing all this, we're also allowing that stuff up there to dry, so that we can try my original concept and find out how good or bad that's going to be. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned before, I do not expect it to go well, but I'm kind of hoping it does. Alright, so I'm going to start, and we're going to do a red to yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and say we bring our red down like halfway. And so I'm just going to lay in my red wash first. I probably should have gone with yellow first, because of the red pigment being probably stronger than the yellow and being harder to get out of my brush. But okay, that's good right there. So I'm gonna have to clean this really well real quick. And here we go with my yellow. And I forgot to lay in a gradient wash. Oh well. I'm pretty sure this will still work out a bit. And then here comes my red. So I'm, in this particular instance, I'm going from a solid red, or a gradient red, to more of a solid yellow. And of course that picked up the water right there in that wash and carried it. Epic fail. Let me see if I can maybe just scoop that right out of there. Okay, well, yeah, that's the problem. It's wanting to, of course, flow right back in. So it does work, though. I mean, look at that. That's it's actually kind of looking nice. Aside from I screwed it up a good bit. It's kind of like fire or sunset. Okay, so let's try to do this one the right way. And this one, I'm going to go from, let's say, yellow to dark blue. And so this time, I'm going to do my little gradient wash here, like halfway in. And we're going to start with yellow, because yellow is the lighter color. I'm going to lay that yellow in good and thick right there, and then kind of work it down towards the middle. And then we're going to do the blue down here, and it's, yeah, if you touch the two washes together, obviously they're going to mingle. Alright, and here comes my darker blue. I'm just going to go ahead and nail that right in there. Look at that cloudy effect while they merge together. That's kind of nice. So we're just kind of lightly coming up, and we're going to violate the yellow right there. And the only problem being that there's very little transition between the two colors. It's there, but it's very short. So let's try to knock this back down a little bit. Maybe I should title this video, What Not to Do with Watercolor. Which is kind of the premise of it anyway, right? Okay. So, I do have blue, and I've got yellow, and I've got some green and fading and stuff going on in the middle there. It works. It's kind of interesting. And of course, I'm getting some puddling down here along the bottom and some bowing. Alright. So now, let's do... I'm going to do a red to dark blue, and then a light blue to dark blue. So let's try something a little different this time, knowing that it's all going to bleed together at whatever rate it really wants to anyway. I'm just going to go ahead and lay down my gradient here, or my wash first. And let's go with the light blue, or wait, yeah, let's go with the light blue. Put my light blue up here on top. I'm going to work it down a little ways. I'm not even going to try to make it nice, really. I'm just going to get it right there. Now I'm going to grab some red. We'll lay him in right here. And we're going to see what happens when they hit each other here. So we've got very light and then blend. Okay, I feel like that is probably a more desirable outcome. That maybe my other ones here are a little too wet and a little too heavy on the pigment. And let's see, so, and then I said I was going to go light blue to dark blue. And I just went right into my paint again. I am still, trying to remember the process for doing this. I'm by no means am I a very skilled watercolor painter. I have done some watercolor, but it has been a while, and even then I was not necessarily good at it. But I'm working on getting good at it now. Okay, my swatch there is all saturated with water. Pick up a little bit of color. I'm just going to dive right in with my dark blue. Woo, look at that fly. I'm not sure if that's because of the water or the pigment itself that wanted to do that. I'm starting to think it might be the pigment, because that seems like it took off pretty good too. Now I'm just dirty brushing across here. Oh, see, there's my green that I'm creating over there and my yellow. Okay, I think it's time to whip out a tissue, kind of clean this up a little bit. Stuff behind me. Alright, so I'm just going to come right on in here and soak this up. Don't need all that extra color floating around. Okay. So, I mean, the one thing about watercolor is that it's not necessarily the ideal medium for staying inside the lines. It can be done. But definitely not when you're just slopping things out. Okay, so this is what I've been using in this step. This is my number 6 round from the Master's Touch series of brushes. And these ones, if I remember right, they're like, I don't know, orange Taklon or golden Taklon or something like that. Oh, I bumped the camera. Okay. Not entirely sure this guy's ready to go yet. They all these brushes had some protective glue on them, I believe, so they were all very stiff when I first opened them up. Now here, I'm going to show you how badly I do at drawing vertical lines by freehand. This is my number 2 that I pulled out. I'm trying to stay very light so I can make a thin line. And now I've gone actually far too dark, or too heavy with it. A little bit of variation in there. So this would be just like, what do you call it, like some tool learning, line practice. I do not, since I've not done a lot with watercolor, I don't have the skill of really like drawing lines with brushes with watercolor. So this is just some practice, seeing about how well I can draw a line, and I keep skipping because I'm trying to keep that super light pressure. And it's a very, very, very small margin of error right there. I think I'm getting it though. Okay, and I had a bead of water that came down the ferrule of the brush. Okay, now I'm getting some very, very thin lines here, but then I'm also skipping. And of course it's worse while I'm talking. So I'm sure any experienced artist out there that works with brushes is probably going to tell you it's because I'm not holding my breath while I draw. So here we go, a very fine line. There we go. So yes, holding your breath will definitely help a little bit, or breathing very, very slowly. And now, let's just change this up a little bit. I'm going to do thin. And I'm going to press down towards the bottom. So it's a thin to thick line. I really like how much paint these are holding. Another thin to thick line. And another. And of course they are starting to meet each other down there, which I expected that. You know, eventually you run out of room down there when you're going thick. So let's try this one. Let's do a thick one, all the way down thick, and then taper it up to thin. Okay. I feel like I got too little paint that time. Okay, so that's some vertical lines, and they are not truly vertical. And I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and maybe this is cheating. I'm going to turn the paper this way. We're going to do vertical lines, except they're going to be horizontal on the paper. This is because I'm a lefty and I painted that block first, because I did not really plan that out. I thought about it, but I didn't actually do anything about it. Okay, so a dashed line. That one's more solid. A bit thin. And we're running out of paint. Not sure if you've noticed this yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm at an angle instead of being perfectly horizontal. I do have a tendency to do that. So let's try here. And I do feel like I might actually be getting a little bit faster here as I go. I mean, already, even with this little bit of practice. Maybe it's just because they're shorter lines. And then let's do some a thick to thin. Thin to thick. Thick to thin. Thin to thick. And then I'm just going to do some more little lines here. Okay. Oops, I am having trouble getting my paper. So, yes, now we have vertical and horizontal. And these could even be, I mean, the basics of texture. Line simulates texture. So these could be like wood grain, or even, I mean, it would be more of a swirly pattern, but like fingerprints or anything. And I think of fingerprints when I see the broken lines here. The little, like, some of it would be deeper and some of it would be thinner. But of course it would be more swirly than that. Now I'm going to pause the video for a few minutes. And then we're going to come back. These are going to be diagonal lines. And I'm actually going to do those diagonal. So I'm going to wait for that to dry before I do those. After those are done, we're going to come back up to the 4 circles. And we're going to see how bad the color going over the grayscale is. And then I'm going to try to do a tiny little painting in here of something, kind of on the seat of, off the seat of my pants, or however you say that, and see if I can make something that looks good that small real quickly with the 4 colors that I've, well, actually 5 colors because I've got black, but with the 4 or 5 colors that I've got, we'll see if I can do a painting in there. So okay, I am back again. Let this dry for a little bit, and before I get into painting, before I get into painting the diagonal lines, I'm going to point out my yellow didn't gradate very well. I mean, it did gradate, and I could add more yellow to finish that out, but since I know I can add more yellow to finish it out, and it doesn't really matter, I'm not going to actually do it. But, you know, so sometimes you might have to work up a gradient a little bit. But I did want to show you something, actually a couple of somethings. So first of all, this is the painting, watercolor painting that I did in 2013 in art school. That is the only watercolor painting I have ever done prior to my recent projects. And I'm looking through the camera right now. It looks like this actually turned a lot more yellow in the view here than what it really is. But yeah, that's where I was at painting from a model back in 2013. And then, in case you haven't seen the video where I did it, this is my dogfight painting that I did in watercolor, learning some very basic stuff just like a week or two ago. I think it was last week that I finished it up anyway. I think it ended up taking me the better part of 2 weeks, a little bit here, a little bit there, between working and other life stuff that was going on. And so that's my watercolor example, or my examples to go by so far for what I can do with watercolor. And I'm planning on getting better. Oops, if I can ever pick up my brushes. Maybe I need to grow my fingernails, I don't know. It's I'm having a problem here. Oh, maybe I need triangle shaped brushes instead. I think my wife pointed out that she found some today on Amazon that she wanted to get me. Okay, and to change things up a little bit, we're going to go with some dark blue for the lines that I'm going to do. These are going to be diagonals. I'm going to go ahead and start in this one and then do that one. So we're actually learning and advancing here a little bit, because I am left-handed. And so let's start down here. I'm actually going to go down and to the left instead of up and to the right. But let's do some up and to the right as well. So that is pushing the paint instead of pulling it. It does not feel like overly natural. I mean, pulling seems far more fluid and natural. And I forget now. I think I was using the light blue. Although those first few lines look pretty dark. Maybe I was using the dark blue. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll just go multicolored with this one. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm going to go back to dark blue here. So let's go up and to the right. Oh, that's very thin. I'm just skipping along the page. So, yeah, I'm probably even partly blocking here. Blocking the camera view. So yeah, up and to the right is very weird for me. Pulling it down and to the left is much more natural. I could try painting with my right hand, but I'm sure it would be horrible. So, unless I had paint sitting in my brush, you'll notice there's a lot of variation between these colors. Even when I'm staying in the dark blue, it gets almost as light as the light blue. They're very similar when they're light. Alright, let me try some. We'll go thick. Bring it down to thin. And then thin. And becoming thicker. And then thick. To thin. thicker lines. And then some thin ones. Oh wow, look at how thin those are. Well, it's kind of cool. Nice little bit of variation in there. Let me go ahead and wet my brush again. Okay, and then planning things out. Let's go. Okay, going up and to the left is a little weird, but left down to the right, that's okay. So again, this is for me for sure. Pulling is a lot more natural than pushing. And I've got water in my brush, but not much paint. So that's why it's coming out lighter like that. Let's go thick. Down to thin. Thinner. Down to... Well, that was kind of a mess up. But, yeah. Going thinner to thicker. And then I'll go heaviest and thick down to light. And then just some, let's go with like a medium line. A really thick line. And some thin lines. And some of those are kind of medium to bold. I mean, not as big as my fully thick line. Like that. Okay. So that definitely works out. You know, so I'm going to suggest if you're trying to learn watercolor, or probably even any painting, probably doing some exercises like this are going to be good for you, because I'm already seeing improvement in my lines. I mean, look at how dotted these were in the beginning, and still dotted here. And now I hardly ever skip and dot like that. I'm starting to get a lot more consistent. And this is, I mean, what has this been? I think maybe I've been doing this video for about an hour now. I'm doing it all in real time. And so, I mean, I don't have a clock over here that I'm looking at. So I have no idea. For all I know, it could have been like 3 hours. But I think it's been less than an hour. So now, here comes the test. Let's see what my colors do over this. And that is all good and dry now. I don't feel any moisture, maybe a touch of it right there. And obviously, I know, I'm pretty sure this is going to bleed into my new paint. I'm going to use a bigger brush as well. So let me clean this out some more. Let me go back to my big number 12 brush. Or, yeah, we'll go with the number 12. And I think that knowing that my number 12 holds a lot of water, I did squeegee it out a little bit on the side of the cup. I'm going to start with this one over here, where I feel like I've got the best kind of gradient type thing, and I'm going to go with yellow. So I'm loading up the yellow, and I'm just going to brush it in here. Wow, so far it's actually kind of working out pretty well. I think if there's going to be any issue, it's going to be in like how much I work up that yellow. I mean, that's obviously a yellow that's being deepened by black, so it's desaturated and it's kind of dirty looking. but I kind of, as far as working in real tones, I kind of like that. I mean, I can always add more color to it if I want to. I'm very surprised at how little, if any, that black has picked up. I mean, it may do more. I'm going to add a little bit of red to this. Let's say I want this to be more of a, like, as it gets darker, it becomes more orangish and reddish. And I feel like maybe that might be muddying up a bit more with the, yeah, it's browning. So definitely, the color, the black will lift and come in. I think the less you work it, the more you're going to be layering. And, what do you call it? You'll be getting, you might get some nice clean transitions if you want to work that way. I think this is definitely worth experimenting with a little bit more. So let's do the next one. Let's go with, let's go with yellow again. Because I think if there's going to be a huge problem, I think it's going to happen with the lightest of the colors that you can use. And since I'm not likely to be using white for anything other than a highlight after the fact, then I feel like yellow is probably the ideal color for testing this. Okay, so I'm now spreading my yellow. And this time, see, I used a little bit of red there. Let's try the light blue. In fact, maybe I'll do light blue and dark blue in this one. And I got a lot of paint this time. So let's lay this in. And as I've said, I want this color to be desaturated as it gets darker, instead of becoming just more saturated into a darker value, or I don't know, a deeper hue. That's one of the things about watercolor, is that you can get really vibrant colors, across like all spectrums. But sometimes for the paintings that I want to do, I'm going to need the darker side of it, which you don't see. Haven't really seen a lot of examples of people painting with desaturated colors in watercolor. I mean, that's not what the medium is really known for. And as a stepping stone before I move up into another medium, I want to see if I can do that with any kind of, what do you want to say, like accuracy or skill or whatever. I want to see if I can make it look good. So I'm just kind of fluffing these tones a little bit more, or values or whatever, trying to kind of create something other than the murky cloud that I'm now seeing. Okay. Now in this third one, let's do something a little different. Let's go with, what if I just lay down my water first? Kind of dry this brush out a little bit. I want to see, let's see, I don't see this paint really picking up, but it is. Like, you can see these little spots coming in the paper, the little dark flecks. I think that is like maybe that's like either the filler or the pigment in that paint kind of popping loose in there because of it having too much water in it. So let's go with light blue. Okay, so I've got this light blue, which it I don't know. I don't know how well that really worked to me. It's got, I guess it's okay. It just feels like way too dark up there. Let's try cheating a little bit here. I'm just brushing water right in here to create like a highlight. Okay, that kind of works. And then, make sure I squeegee my brush out pretty good, because I've got some very wet paint over here. I'm going to lay in some red. Okay, and then right here I kind of flicked and lost my tip, and I splattered red paint over there. Something to keep in mind. And I'm going to clean this brush out. I feel like that red is coming a little too solid into the blue. Okay. I'm pretty sure I'm working way too wet right here right now. I can see this huge puddle forming right here at the bottom. But alright, that's good enough for that circle. And again, I am actually kind of surprised at how little this black or this gray underpainting has actually come off. So it makes me wonder, I mean, I might have to do another test. In fact, we might do another test in this box, because that was only one application of black. So if I build up a black underpainting in multiple values, getting like a lot of different values in there, I wonder if it would lift more or even less or the same. Okay. You know what? I'm going to leave that one be for now. I'm going to put this brush away, because we're going down here in this little bottom box over here. So that brush will be overkill. But I feel like the number 6 should probably be okay. And get my brush cleared out. And so I think I probably oversaturated my my paint cakes with water. So my color is a little bit thin. Let me do this. So I'm just laying down direct paint on the paper. So that's definitely black. I want to paint some circles. Okay. There we go. That one's a good light gray. Thinking maybe I need to start my circle in the center and work my way out. Let's see how that works. Okay. Ultimately, you're going to have, at the very end, it seems like, a little bit of water that's going to puddle up somewhere. Maybe you have very little control over where that's going to be, but some. So it's kind of wherever you end at. And what if I go right in the center? Then it's going to kind of spread out and pick its area. Okay. So a handful of little circles here. And obviously I didn't lay down washes to perfectly gradate these things. But so now let's go ahead and add in. I'm going to try to slowly build these up and hope that I don't overdo it. Because I want to get a good variation from fairly light to very dark, and then I want to go over it with colors and see what happens. Okay. And obviously the ones that I laid down first that are really black, they're just going to be black. They're done. Now, if I'm going to do this on an actual painting, I will probably create several different values of black as to underpaint with to create this, instead of just kind of guessing. Okay. All right. So another thing I've noticed, these brushes, I can hear them swirl in that water a lot better than I could hear the other ones. It was like they just kind of cut through the water instead of picking it up. Right now I'm just adding a bit of water to help kind of blend these. Ooh. I could do that to kind of help lift some of that color out. Maybe. Okay. Alright. Well, that's obviously going to have to dry like the other ones did before I can really go in and lay colors on it and hope that it won't come up. So, I'm going to pause again. When I come back, I'll finish that one last little box, and we'll call this video a wrap. Okay, and we are back again for the final part of this picture. And some of this is still wet up here. You can see where this kind of bled out. Yeah, you can still see that in the video. But I do kind of like that transition from the yellow to the green to the blue there. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's working out. And over here, this is more of a yellow to a brown. And if you recall, I just used red in there. And that red picked up the black and desaturated, which is actually what I was going for. Although that could be a better blend. And then in this one, the blue to the red didn't work out very much because it just became kind of like a blue and violet, and there's not much transition. I mean, there's kind of a nice little bit here, but the hard line from the gray stayed on it. And now we're down here. I'm gonna go ahead and just slide this around my little tape spots again. So I'm going to paint on this, and we're going to see what happens with it. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to go with the, now I'm missing my brush. What did I do with my brush? Oh, it's down here, where I can't get it. Really having a problem picking these brushes up off this table. Okay. So the first thing I want to do down here is I'm just going to kind of lay in a wash. And, ooh, I can see that heavy black is definitely wanting to go. Any of these things that are heavy black are wanting to smear out. And that's fine. I think maybe they didn't dry enough, or there's enough pigment there that they want to go for a ride with this water. So that's going to create an interesting look. Not necessarily what I was going for. But again, this is practice, and I want to see what my paint's going to do when I do just kind of some weird things. Now, that is interesting. I don't know what it would be good for, but it's interesting to see. I'm going to bring in some blue. The dark blue down each side. And I have no plan here. I am just playing around. Let's do some light blue. I'm going to bring that right down the middle. And then I'm just going to kind of swash it out. And maybe add some more water here. So definitely got some slightly interesting things going on there. And just, yeah, these heavy black guys, or heavy black circles, okay, they are definitely wanting to fly all over the place in this. They don't even want to be circles anymore. So maybe this underpainting idea is not a very good idea, because anytime you get heavy with it, it's going to come out. And I'm pretty sure I left it dry for a long enough period of time. So it's worth making a note of. I'm just going to dab in some red spots just to see what happens here. Maybe make them a little bit bigger. Now, I've definitely got a lot of water and a lot of paint in this little area right now. And then the only other colors I have, let's see, I got the two blues, the red, I've got yellow, and I've got black, which we've already used black, but well, let's take some yellow. Just I have no idea. Maybe this will look kind of cool. Maybe it'll look ridiculous. Maybe it'll just be a big muddy mess. I think I want some heavy red here. So each of these colors, I guess it probably has like a mix of pigment and filler. And so they actually all respond a little bit differently when they're dropped in. Like the red seems to want to stay in its own place. It spreads much more slowly, but it was the, what was it? Was it the dark blue, I think? It really likes to flow. The light blue doesn't really like to flow that much. It seems like it wants to kind of stay. And yellow is it flows fairly well. And the black kind of seems like it holds its place as well. So, I don't know, maybe it's the lighter the colors. Well, the yellow, I don't know. The yellow didn't really flood everywhere, although that is my biggest seepage over here. I'm not sure if that's actually in view. So, let me bring this back into where I know it's safe. So, I've got that big swatch there, and I'm not sure if that was because I went over it with the brush or if it was that much of a flow. But I'm going to say that probably the lighter colors like to flow a lot more than the darker colors. And so yes, this looks, I don't know, some sort of abstract drip splotch painting or whatever. Definitely not my style. But some of it looks kind of cool. It is definitely not what I was planning on doing there, though. And so, I mean, that's going to be it for this video. We did some practice. And I don't know. I'm thinking probably I will not actually try to use this grayscale underpainting, because I don't think it's going to work out very well. I think it might, when I start laying colors on top of it, especially if I'm laying a lot of color on it, I think it's going to ruin it. And that's a big part of the reason why I wanted to do this video, is to see if it would work out really well, or maybe a little bit, or not at all. And of course, these bits here, you know, as we noticed, I got a little bit better with my brush control just doing these 4 squares. So definitely, if you want to learn watercolor, do some practice. And I mean, I know these are cheap paints and they're probably at least like a third of the problem here, but I figure it is better to learn how to control the cheap stuff and then start working with the better stuff. I did not mention, I don't think, at any point in this video, this watercolor paper is Dick Blick watercolor paper. It's a pack that I have, that I picked up in school, when I was in school, from dickblick.com, and it's 140 pound cold press. I don't remember how cheap it was. It came as a pack of 15, but it's 9x12, and the other watercolor paper I was using when I did my dogfight painting is actually Canson watercolor paper, which is also 9x12. It's the same stuff as far as I could tell. It's 9x12, 140 pound, or 140 GSM, and cold press. I am not entirely sure what the difference is between cold press and hot press. I saw a video not too long ago where a woman was doing a watercolor painting on hot press watercolor paper, but the painting she did ended up, even though it was watercolor, it looked a lot more like acrylic when she was done. She was laying it on really heavy, so I don't know if that has anything to do with the paper or just her technique. So at some point, I'll probably try hot press and see how that works out as well, or at least do some research on it and find out what hot press is intended for. So, thank you for watching. I hope to come back with another video soon where I can do something with watercolor that's a lot more impressive than just this little practice sheet. If I haven't mentioned it already, for this month, November, on my Patreon, I'm planning on doing a big 18x24 watercolor painting of a nativity scene with Jesus and Mary and Joseph and the 3 wise men and some shepherds and sheep and the camels, a mule, oxen. I mean, it's the whole thing, like everything you see in your typical nativity scene. And so I still need to get that sketched out, and I need to get to work on painting it really quick because time's running out this month. And I mean, I've got in the last video I did, I did some thumbnail sketching for that video and pretty much announced that that is what I'm doing. And I have a feeling, though, it might be something that takes me beyond this month. But for the rest of this week, that's going to be my focus, and we'll see if I can get through that painting this week. And I do believe that for that painting, I will still be using these Crayola watercolors to do that one. Although I might also use some of my other tools. We'll see how it even pans out. But I'm going to end this video, and so thank you again for watching, and I hope you subscribe and see how this little journey in watercolor goes. Thanks.